Today, breaking news is reshaping the balance of power in Eastern Europe as Ukraine now faces what many analysts are calling a new and far more dangerous phase of the war. What once appeared to be a two-nation conflict is increasingly evolving into a three-nation confrontation, where coordinated pressure, shared strategy, and synchronized military movements are changing the reality on the ground and redefining the risks ahead. For Ukraine, this moment feels heavier than before because the battlefield is no longer limited to a single direction. Threats are emerging from multiple fronts, forcing Kiev to stretch its defenses, manpower, and resources at a time when fatigue has already set in after years of relentless conflict. The war has entered a stage where survival depends not only on courage, but on speed, intelligence, and international resolve. The idea of three nations being tied to one war is not just symbolic. It reflects a deepening alignment between Russia and its closest regional ally, alongside Ukraine's struggle to defend its sovereignty while relying on Western support. This alignment is no longer hidden behind diplomatic language. It is visible in joint military drills, shared logistics, intelligence coordination, and political messaging that openly challenges the existing European security order. Ukraine's leadership understands that this shift represents more than a tactical challenge. It signals a strategic transformation of the war itself. When multiple nations coordinate pressure, even small movements can have massive consequences. Supply lines become vulnerable, borders turn tense, and civilian populations feel the impact long before soldiers do. One of the most alarming aspects of this new phase is the northern dimension of the conflict. For months, attention remained focused on the eastern and southern fronts. Now, the possibility of renewed pressure from the North forces Ukraine to reconsider how it allocates troops and defensive systems. Even the threat of action can be as powerful as action itself, because it compels Ukraine to prepare for scenarios that may or may not materialize. This psychological dimension is central to modern warfare. By creating uncertainty, Ukraine's adversaries aim to exhaust decision makers, drain resources, and erode public confidence. Every warning, every military exercise, and every political statement becomes part of a broader pressure campaign designed to keep Ukraine permanently on edge. For ordinary Ukrainians, this evolving situation deepens an already painful reality. Air raid sirens, power shortages, and economic strain have become part of daily life. The idea that the war could widen further fuels anxiety and fear, especially among families who have already sacrificed so much. The human cost of strategic decisions is often invisible in headlines, but it is felt in every home. International reactions to this new threat have been cautious but serious. Western governments recognize that a broader conflict could destabilize the entire region. If Ukraine is forced to defend multiple fronts simultaneously, the risk of miscalculation increases, and with it, the danger of escalation beyond Ukraine's borders. Military analysts are closely watching troop movements, logistics routes, and political signals. They know that wars rarely expand by accident. Expansion usually follows a calculated assessment that the benefits outweigh the risks. Understanding those calculations is critical for predicting what comes next. Russia's perspective on this three-nation dynamic is rooted in long-term strategy. By strengthening alliances and demonstrating unity, Moscow seeks to project power and resilience. The message is clear. Russia is not isolated, and it is prepared to sustain pressure over time. This narrative is aimed as much at domestic audiences as it is at foreign governments. At the same time, Ukraine's resilience remains a defining factor. Despite facing a larger and better-resourced adversary, Ukraine has repeatedly shown its ability to adapt. From innovative battlefield tactics to effective use of intelligence, Ukraine continues to surprise those who underestimate its resolve. The role of Western support cannot be overstated in this context. Military aid, financial assistance, and diplomatic backing have enabled Ukraine to withstand pressure that might otherwise have been overwhelming. However, the emergence of a broader threat raises questions about whether current levels of support will be sufficient in the long run. Some Western leaders worry about escalation, while others argue that hesitation only emboldens aggression. This debate shapes policy decisions that directly affect Ukraine's ability to respond. Delays in aid, uncertainty in commitments, and political divisions can all have tangible consequences on the battlefield. Another critical element is information warfare. Narratives surrounding the conflict are being aggressively shaped by all sides. Claims of provocation, self-defense, and historical entitlement compete for global attention. In this environment, perception can influence reality by affecting public opinion, political will, and international alignment. Ukraine has become adept at communicating its story to the world. By highlighting civilian suffering and emphasizing its defense of international law, Kiev seeks to maintain moral and political support. Yet, as the conflict grows more complex, sustaining that narrative becomes increasingly challenging. Economically, the implications of a three-nation conflict are significant. Trade routes, energy supplies, and regional markets are all affected by heightened instability. Countries far from the battlefield may still feel the impact through higher prices, disrupted supply chains, and increased uncertainty. Energy security is particularly sensitive. The war has already reshaped Europe's energy landscape, and any expansion could intensify those changes. Energy infrastructure becomes both a strategic asset and a potential target, raising the stakes for all involved. Diplomatically, the path forward is narrow and uncertain. Calls for negotiation coexist with preparations for prolonged conflict. Trust between the parties is minimal, and previous attempts at dialogue have failed to produce lasting results. In such an environment, even small incidents can derail fragile diplomatic efforts. Ukraine's allies face difficult choices. Supporting Ukraine more forcefully could deter further aggression, but it could also provoke retaliation. Doing too little risks allowing the conflict to expand unchecked. Balancing these risks requires clear strategy and unified action. For Ukraine, the challenge is existential. The state is fighting not only for territory, but for its right to exist as an independent nation. The emergence of a new threat reinforces the belief among many Ukrainians that compromise may not guarantee peace, and that resilience remains their strongest defense. The military dimension of this evolving war highlights the importance of adaptability. Static defenses and predictable strategies are increasingly vulnerable. Mobility, intelligence sharing, and technological innovation are becoming decisive factors in determining outcomes. Drones, cyber capabilities, and precision weapons have already transformed the conflict. As more actors become involved, these tools will play an even greater role. Control of information and airspace can be as decisive as control of territory. Civil defense and societal resilience are also critical. Ukraine's ability to maintain essential services, protect civilians, and sustain morale under pressure will influence its long-term prospects. Wars are not won solely by armies, but by societies that endure. The international community's response to this new phase will shape future conflicts beyond Ukraine. How the world reacts to coordinated aggression sends a signal to other regions where tensions are simmering. The stakes extend far beyond Eastern Europe. Some fear that failure to contain this conflict could normalize the use of force to achieve political goals. Others see Ukraine's resistance as proof that aggression can be challenged, even against formidable odds. Which interpretation prevails will depend on decisions made now. As the situation develops, uncertainty remains the only constant. The lines between deterrence and escalation are thin, and missteps could have far-reaching consequences. Every move is scrutinized, every statement analyzed for hidden meaning. For now, Ukraine stands at the center of a storm created by competing ambitions and unresolved histories. The emergence of a three-nation dynamic does not guarantee immediate escalation, but it undeniably raises the level of risk. It demands vigilance, unity, and strategic clarity from all who seek to prevent a wider catastrophe. This war has already reshaped lives, borders, and global politics. The new threat facing Ukraine suggests that its final chapter is far from being written. What happens next will depend on choices made by leaders, the resilience of societies, and the willingness of the international community to uphold the principles it claims to defend. In this moment, Ukraine's struggle is not only about survival, but about the future of regional and global security. The world is watching closely, knowing that the outcome of this war will echo far beyond the battlefield, shaping the rules of power and resistance for years to come.